Lesson Authorization Check. Lesson Overview. In this lesson, you will learn why an authorization check is useful and how to include it in your programs. You will learn to create authorization objects and assign them to roles. A business example. Authorization checks are necessary in your programs to protect the data from unauthorized access. Authorization checks. Critical data and parts of the functional scope of the SAP system must be protected from unauthorized access. You have to implement authorization checks in your programs so that the user may only access areas for which he or she is authorized. Authorization objects can be defined within object classes. You create an actual authorization by subsequently assigning values to these fields. This authorization can be integrated into the required user master records by means of an authorization profile or a role. At runtime, you can use the authority check statement to check whether the actual user has the authorization required for executing the function in his or her user master record. Depending on the check result, site sub RC, you can continue your program accordingly. If size sub RC equals 0, the user has required authorization. So you execute the function, for example, the select. Otherwise, if the size sub RC is not equal to 0, the authorization does not exist. So you send an appropriate note to the user in the form of a message. For example, we have the following graphic. We have the selection screen and we have a parameter. So we input AA in the selection screen to output a result. So in the ABAP program, the authority check happens, and if the user has authorization, the size sub 0 will equal 0 and I will perform the select. If not, then I will return a message to the user regarding the missing authorization. Creating authorization objects. You must first define the structure or the fields of the respective authorization concept. An object usually consists of the ACTBT activity field and one other field, which specifies the data type to be protected, material number, airline, and so on. You can now use transaction SU20 to create the fields. ACTBT is already in the system. You then use transaction SU21 to first create an object class and then create the authorization object specifying the appropriate fields. Finally, all that remains to be done is to implement the authorization check in your program. So, let's practice an example of an authorization object inside the SAP system. So basically, what we have to do is we have to create a program to list information from AA and AU airlines. No other airline information can be seen. So in order to accomplish that requirement, we need to create authorization objects, fields, roles, and then we create the program to test the authority check statement. So Our first step is to create an authorization object field in the SU20 transaction. We're going to create the Z car ID field so that we can assign the values AA and AU to that field, so we can only list information from these two airlines. After that, we're going to create an authorization object in transaction SU21. It's going to be called CAO car ID, and we're going to assign the ACTVT field to this object, and we also are going to assign the previously created C car ID field to our new object. After that, we're going to create a role. We're going to assign our previously created authorization object to a role, and we're going to assign the role to our user using the transaction PFCG. Finally, we're going to create a small program and test the authority check statement. So first, let's navigate to transaction SU20. This is the transaction for authorization fields. So we're gonna go ahead and click a new authorization field. And we're going to name our field C car ID. And the data element, we're going to use the data element from the dictionary S car ID. For the table name, for the search for values in the profile generator, we're going to use the SCAR table. So that's it. So we save, we select our package, we select the request, and our field was saved. We can go down to the bottom, all the way down, and here we can see our field created. So now let's create our authorization object. So we go back. Let's go to transaction SU21 to create our authorization object and our object class. So we navigate to SU21, then we click on create new object class, and we're going to call the CFL object class. This is the object class authorization for flights. Let's write ABAP course, and we save, and we save. So now we have our class, and now we create a new authorization object. Our object is going to be called CAO for authorization object car ID. I choose this name because we want to restrict the airlines, and the car ID is commonly the airline field. And this is an authorization object for the airlines AA and AU. Here we write the name of our previously created field, and here we include the ACTVT field. This is a standard field of the system. We press enter, and then we click on permitted activities. First, it asks us to save, so we select our package and our request, then we click OK. So now it's saving our fields. It's taking a while. There you go. So now we define the values for the activity or the activity field. So we're going to just give permissions to create or generate, change or display. Even though we're just going to use the display for this example, so let's just leave the display selected and we save. And we click OK. And now our object is already created, so we close. To verify, we can navigate to our object class and we can see our authorization object created. So now we have to create a role to assign this authorization object to. So let's go back. So let's create a role and then let's assign that role to a user. So let's navigate to transaction PFCG and then we're going to create the C flight. Now let's better call it C Airlines AA AU. Role. And then let's click on single role. The description, let's write a brief information description. So flight information role for AA and AU Airlines. Now let's navigate to the authorizations. It asks me to save first. Yes, I want to save. And now I click on change authorization data. Then it asks me to choose a template, and no, I don't want any templates. I want to create my own, so I do not select templates. And then I'm going to add manually my authorization object to this role. So I create on manually, and then I write the name of my authorization object, and then I click on OK. I expand these nodes until I reach my airline code. So I click on change and it asks me the values. So I'm going to choose just 2 values. So let me choose. It's not displaying it. Let's try again. And there you go. There's something wrong with my window. I'm sorry about that. So you select American Airlines. OK. And then I select United Airlines, the other one. I was writing it the other way around. I'm sorry. It was U8, United Airlines. And I click on save. So those are the only 2 airlines allowed to display information from. And the activity I'm going to click on display to display the information. So I just can't, I can only display my information. So now I click on generate to generate my profile. Every role generates a profile. For now, let's just leave this as it is, the profile name. It's okay. So my profile was created. Now I save. My data was saved, and I can go back now back to this menu. This little icon has to be green all the time. So let's go back and see what we were missing. The status has to be generated. Save. It's still yellow. Let's see what's happening here. Let's generate and let's go back. Now it's green. Sometimes SAP has these things that you have to first generate, and you don't have to save the changes. So in this case, that will happen. So now it is green, and now my authorization object was added to my role, and a profile was created. And now I want to assign my user to this role so I can view the information for these two airlines. So I go to user, and on user ID I click on the input help box, and then I search for my user. There you go. Okay. And now I press enter, and then I click on user comparison. Complete comparison. Yes, I want to save my role. And now the user is also green. So now authorization object and user is in the green status, so it is okay. And now my user was assigned to this role, and this role has the authorization to view that information. So now let's implement that in code using the authority check statement. So let's go back. Let's go back one more time. So let's create a program. So we navigate to the object navigator. And then let's go to our ABAP course. And, or better, you know what, let's use our cFlight package with our flight report. Remember, we had that report created, and we're going to add the authorization ABAP statement to execute this program only if I have the authorization to do it. So let's click on edit or change, and then I'm going to use the pattern button to generate my ABAP statement. So I select authority check, and then I write the authority object, CAO car ID, and then I click on continue. Then, as you can see, the program automatically fills in this for me. So now I just have to replace the field. I'm going to check using the parameter that the user has input. That parameter has to be AA or UA. If it's another airline, then the information cannot be displayed. Remember, you can only display information for AA and UA airlines. And the activity field remember we use the 3. So we hardcode 3 to display. So now we check the site sub RC. If it equals 0, then you have authorization. If not, then you print a message to the screen displaying that you don't have authorization for that operation. So you don't have, I'm going to use do not have authorization for that airline. I'm going to use the type I for information message, and I'm going to move all my code inside my if. I click on the pretty printer to just align my code. I can erase this comment code, we're not using it anymore. So now in my program I'm going to check first for my object. If I have this object, then I have to select the appropriate airline to display the information. So let's check the syntax and activate our program. And let's try it. So let's run the program. So let's select, for example, American Airlines flight 17, and the information was displayed correctly. Now let's select, I want to see information from Air Canada on flight 17, and you can see the system displays you do not have authorization for that airline. What about the United Airlines? And the information is displayed, but in this case there was no information for flight 17. What about, I want to see about the Japanese Airlines. No, I don't have authorization. So that way you can use the authority check ABAP statement to check for authorization objects in your programs. Table TACT contains all possible activity codes including their descriptions. Table TACT-C, in contrast, contains the activity codes that are permitted for specific objects. After the authority check statement, you should check the return code size sub RC and monitor further processing of your program accordingly. In order to avoid spelling errors in object and field names, you should have the authority check statement generated into your source code by means of the pattern button, just like we did in the example. Now you should be able to explain the SAP authorization concept and implement authorization checks.